Hello and welcome back to Cozy News Corner, where we talk about open source news. And I have not had any vulnerabilities that I really want to go through this week. There have been a bunch of them, but generally update your Chrome, your Thunderbird, your Firefox, or any other of these kind of internet facing things, and you will be pretty fine. But we will have one huge vulnerability that we need to look into later, but that is the second topic here. So first topic is LFS has turned up the heat on vendors who won't contribute. So this LVFS is the Linux Vendor Firmware Service. These are the people that are taking different hardware and creating firmware so it will work with your Linux system. And the project so far have shipped over 140 million updates from 150 vendors. And the Linux Foundation have been covering most of their hosting costs so far. And currently they have around 20,000 firmwares in circulation. So it's a pretty big project to keep running and so on. And currently the security vulnerability is just handled on best effort basis. So they really needed some more funding. And what they say that they actually need around 2 full-time software engineers, or around 400,000 to fund per year for funding the entire hires through the Linux Foundations, plus a separate 30,000 for hosting. And they had fixed it up in the way that they had a sponsorship where a company could go in with 100,000 per year, and if they had less than 99 employees, then they were a startup and would pay about 10,000 a year. And here is the good part. Lenovo and Dell has both signed up as premium partners for LFS and putting in 100,000 a year each, which means that they are halfway there for a funding already. And before they did this, when they turned it up, so before that point, Framework Computers was already signed up as a startup sponsor, with putting in around 10,000 a year. So this will make efforts to come closer to their target, of course, but they need even more funding. And Richard Hughes, the lone full-time developer of this project, said, with huge industry support from Lenovo and Dell and other existing sponsors of Framework, open source Linux Foundation, and of course the Linux Foundation Red Hat, we can build this ecosystem stronger and higher than ever before. We can continue the great work we've already done and long into the future. So hopefully there will be 2 or more companies that are a little bit larger that could put in some in order to get this started. Nvidia, you have a bunch of money, so why not get into here, put in some money. Next up, we are going to talk about this huge topic, CopyFail, and also Dirty Flag and so on. So CopyFail is a Linux flaw that allows the local Linux user to gain root. And it has the CVE of 2026 3143.1 and is a Linux kernel vulnerability that allows local privileged user to gain root. It was discovered by researchers at Theroe, and they were using some kind of AI agents to find it, and we will probably see even more of these going forward. And only by writing 4 uncontrolled bytes into the page cache of a readable file in the Linux system, they can gain root. The disclosure includes a public proof of concept, and we will look at that. And also the security researchers Hyun Kim publicly disclosed a dirty flag, another of these kind of vulnerabilities that combines the two kernel page cache write issues, and both of them modifies the in-memory copy of a system file without touching the version on disk. Every subsequent read of that file seems to be corrupted copy, and nothing on the file system looks wrong. And this was something that was released, and they have released a fix in a couple of different versions of the kernel, 6.1, 171, 5.15 to 05, 5.10 to 55 stable kernels, and quickly followed up by 6.172 and 5.15 to 06 kernels, and which is another round of stable kernels to provide fixes for the CVEs of Dirty Flag and Copyfail 2 security disclosures. There are not yet a stable version fix for the CVE 26 43 500, and when you go look at that, it's not even disclosed what it is. They have just reserved that number for another failure that they have not disclosed yet. So this is bad. Sasha Levin, an NVIDIA engineer and a Linux stable kernel co-maintainer, submitted the patch, and he submitted a patch that allows some features in the kernel to be temporarily disabled for vulnerable kernel functions, of course. As of now, this kill switch patch is still under review, but have not been accepted yet. So far, those 2 or 3 bugs that we've seen have been in modules, so you could disable the different modules and still be safe. And if you upgrade, in my case, to the latest Debian version, you should be safe as well. So I have actually ran out and upgraded a bunch of systems today in order to get the latest Debian version, because this was really bad. So let me show you how this actually works. Here we have a Debian system, and if we look at etc Debian version, it's 13.1. The latest one is 13.4, which doesn't have this problem. This was one of the ISOs I had lying around, so I thought I could use this one. But this problem has been in the kernel since at least 2017, so there is a lot of vulnerable systems out there. So we have couple different issues here. One is just a Python script. So we could, for instance, create something called test Python here and just copy a script in here. It's a little bit convoluted, but it's just a bunch of code that pretty much types some data into the su command for sudo, a super user, and then you become root pretty much. So if we run Python 3 test py, we now are root. We have a root user and we can do whatever we want on the system as root. And I think if we just type su now, we will become root as well. So the sudo command is pretty much broken at this point. I'm not sure if I log in, if I have solved that. The sudo command is pretty much broken at this point. But there is another one. So if we go over here and do an install of git, we could run another command that will gain us root as well. And this is the dirty flag one. And pretty much we will clone this repository like that, dirty flag. We will go into the dirty flag, and then we have this little command where we just compile this expression with the GCC. Okay, so again we need to install build essential. So this is for building packages pretty much. So this dirty flag requires a bit more, but of course if this program is already compiled on your system, you don't need GCC in order to compile it, of course. But I will download it and install it quickly so we can try this one as well. So pretty much you build it, you get an executable, you run it. It takes a while to figure out, and then it should give you a root access as well. This one is a little bit different, but still it's root, and you have full access of the system. So these are two major issues when it comes to having a local user and you can become root. And of course, in many cases you don't really have the problem here because there isn't a local user to exploit. But in some cases, for instance, if you are running FTP and you are running SFTP, which pretty much is an SSH shell with FTP access, which means that you pretty much could, if you have SFTP, you could just do SSH and get a user login and then use one of these exploits and become root on that system. So there is a bunch of vulnerable systems out there, and if you have SFTP access, you have root access now. So that's a scary thought. So let's continue with the news. Next up, we have Steam May client update ads controller, pop-ups, and battery controls. So in this May update, they have added these connection pop-ups. They have a better battery notification controls. Big picture, have a lot of fixes there. The Stream VR Reconnect have been fixed. The Steam controller firmware issues, a couple of them have been resolved. Charging puck issues have been resolved, and also streaming issues have been resolved. So a lot of good things in the new Steam update. Then we have Mini.io, which is this open source kind of thing where you have an S3 access. You pretty much set this up on your system, connect it to a couple of drives, and then you have an S3 interface with object storage. But they have slowly but surely become more and more proprietary. So back in May 2025, they shipped a breaking release and removed the host management features from the Community Edition's web UI. So that was the first step on going not open source, but they have gone even further now. So the Git repository was recently archived on April 25, 2026. But the thing is that it had been archived before, back in February, but that was briefly archived and now it's locked again. So if you're using Mini.io, then look for some replacement because this will be paid software going forward. Next up, we have the NHS, which is the National Health Service in England, and they are trying to lock down all of their different software because of AI concerns. So pretty much now that you have this Mythos, that is Anthropic's service where you can find vulnerabilities, they are not feeling safe that their code is out there. So they have, the Eden says that the guidance note sent out on April 29 is to set all the different repositories to private by default, to rule for source code repositories, just so AI can't go in there and find vulnerabilities, because that would be really bad. Next up, we have Sovereign Tech, which is a company that opens a paid standards program for open source maintainers. And this is pretty cool. So during 2026, they have a pilot run where they will take around 10 maintainers and they will be selected from a cohort running mid-June, and so until June 2026 to June 2027. And they will need to put in about 10 hours of work on standards, either V3C, ISO, or IETF standards. And if they do that, then they will be compensated with a monthly stipend of 4,800 euros until 5,200 euros, and also be added with something like SDU, participation fees, travel, in-person meetings, and onboarding also covered. So this is a pretty cool project actually. So they have put in a bunch of money in order to do standards work. So if you're interested in this and if you will be selected, then this will really help going forward. And PHP has retired their license finally. So PHP has had their own license, and it has been a little bit complicated to actually figure out what the PHP license actually allows you to do. So they have now gone over to and relicensed under the 3-clause BSD license, which is a more common license, and people know more about what PHP is licensed under. And we have DOS. And Microsoft have now been having DOS for 45 years. Almost as long as I have been alive, and now it's open source. So what they have done here is open source this. So Tim Patterson built QDOS, Quick and Dirty Operating System, in 1980 when I was born, and then they were creating the first PC-DOS 0.1 1981, and this is what have been released now. And you say, okay, we have some software and it's on GitHub now. That wasn't that big of an issue, right? Well, what this software were kept in physical assembler printouts and stacks of continuous feed paper from 1981. So you had old paper printouts that were probably pretty faded and so on. So getting this data back into a computer was a huge effort. And the historians Yufeng Gao and Richie Sini were having to locate, scan, transcribe the DOS-related portions into compatible code. And of course, he didn't save just the PC-DOS. It was a bunch of different things. So we had the PC-DOS kernel, but it was also utilities like checkdisk and the actual assembler Patterson was using to write the OS itself. So figuring out which parts were which in a stack of paper pretty much was a huge effort. And kudos to them. Now we can go to GitHub and read the old source code in pure assembly if you want to. And next up we have Canonical, which had this really sad DDoS attack, which was going on for a long while. And they confirms that the Ubuntu web infrastructure was facing a sustained cross-border DOS attack causing service disruption. And we have seen similar attacks against Arch Linux earlier. And nobody has gone out with any particular group that is behind this. But they believe that there is some hacktivism going behind this. Probably somebody that works at Microsoft or something like that. Somebody that doesn't like open source. But the sad part is that after all of this DDoSing, they also have been, their Twitter account have been hacked. So a tweet have been gone out with fake AI branding, the Ubuntu Nombat name, with Solana tags, blockchain buzzwords, a near identical URL to a quietly built false trust, and thus gaining the unsuspected users step by step into a crypto scam that they come into before they realize the deception. So that is really sad. Hopefully none was really hit by this, but it's of course a blow to Canonical. And the last story is Microsoft. Typical Microsoft fashions, they have been adding Copilot, co-author without telling anyone in VS Code. So if you're using VS Code and you are using VS Code in order to submit code with git commit, it will quietly append co-authored by Copilot line to users' git commits, including ones written entirely without Copilot's involvement. And that is not okay. So that was the last news for today. I thought it was a shorter news segment today, only 10 stories, but there was a lot to talk about and a lot of show and tell, so it was a decent length episode. Anyway, I hope that you found this interesting. I hope that you learned something today. If you liked this video, give it a like, share it with your friends and colleagues. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. If you have any comments or suggestions, leave those in the comment section down below. And I really want to see you in the next video.